All right, so are we all ready to dive into this massive question? I mean, is the winds of winter really worth the wait at this point? We're going to help you figure that out today.
Yeah, we're going to take a look at Martin's writing style, all that, and what we know about what might be in this new book, The Winds of Winter, and, how does it compare to other big fantasy series, that have spanned many, many years.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to go beyond just, rehashing all the delays in the release and actually look at, can this book live up to all this insane hype that's built up around it?
Because, the hype is real. We've got people on Goodreads comparing the wait for this book to The Long Night in Westeros.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I've seen those comments. Some of them are even like making plans for, their descendants to like dig them up so they can read the book when it finally comes out.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild. But all jokes aside, will it actually be worth it? That's the question.
Well, that's what we're here to try to figure out. And I think, maybe a good place to start is with Martin's writing style. He's known for his incredible detail, in his world building and his really complex characters and his willingness to kind of throw curveballs, and completely shock the reader. Think back to Ned Stark's death in the very first book. Yeah. Nobody saw that coming. But, all that meticulousness can also mean that the pace is a little bit slower. And we definitely saw that in A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons.
Yeah, those books were massive.
Yeah.
Sometimes it felt like the story was barely moving forward. Do we have any idea if The Winds of Winter will be any different? Like, are we going to be on the edge of our seats the whole time, or is it going to be another slow burn?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? From what Martin has said, it sounds like the book is going to open with a couple big battles. The battle north of the Wall and the battle at Meereen. So we'll get some action for sure right away. But, battles are only one piece of the puzzle, right?
Right. It's the politics and all the character development and like the slow uncovering of the mysteries that make Martin's book so captivating. So what can we expect in terms of all that?
Well, Martin has made a point of saying that his ending will be different from the HBO show. And that's huge, because that means that characters who died in the show, like Stannis Baratheon, for example, they might still be alive in the books and still have a part to play. And remember Lady Stoneheart? Her storyline was cut completely from the show, but she's a pretty major player in the books.
Okay, see, now that's the kind of stuff that gets me excited to get back into this world even after all these years. But some of those storylines have been going on for so long, I'm worried they might have kind of fizzled out by now.
Yeah, I can see how you might feel that way. But you got to think about it this way. Martin has had over a decade to think about these characters and their arcs. He's had time to really explore different possibilities and weave an even richer and more complex story than what we've seen before.
Okay, I get that. But I'm still a little bit skeptical, to be honest. Look what happened with Game of Thrones. The last few seasons felt so rushed, and a lot of fans were disappointed with how it all ended. How can we be sure that Martin won't make the same mistakes?
Yeah, that's where the comparison to other big fantasy series comes in. Think about something like The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. That's another huge saga with tons of characters and storylines. And Jordan actually passed away before he could finish the series, but he left behind a lot of notes, and Brandon Sanderson was able to step in and finish the last 3 books. And even with that change, the quality of the books stayed really high, and the ending was satisfying.
Yeah, The Wheel of Time is a good example of a series that stayed true to its vision, even under really difficult circumstances. But man, the wait for those last few books was rough.
It absolutely was. And that's something we have to think about with The Winds of Winter. There's no guarantee it's coming out anytime soon. And even if it does come out, it's just one part of the story. We're still waiting on a dream of spring to really get the full picture.
So you're saying we need to temper our expectations a little bit. We need to be prepared for a long wait and for the possibility that the book maybe won't be everything we hope it will be.
Exactly. But we also have to remember what made us fall in love with this series in the first place, This is a world full of political intrigue and moral ambiguity and characters you can't help but care about, even when they're making terrible decisions.
Okay. I'm starting to see both sides of it now. On the one hand, there's the risk of being disappointed in the long wait and the fact that we don't even know for sure if the series will ever be finished. But on the other hand,
there's the potential for a truly amazing writing experience. We could get to return to this world that we love and get a conclusion that's completely from Martin's mind.
So where do we go from here? How do we weigh all those risks against the potential rewards?
Well, I think the next step is to really look at what we already know about what might be in the Winds of Winter. We can analyze the things Martin has said and look at all the fan theories and try to piece together a picture of what this book might hold.
All right, let's do it. Let's dig into some of those hints and theories. Where do we even start?
Well, Martin has said that the Winds of Winter picks up right where A Dance with Dragons left off. So storylines are coming together. The stakes are getting even higher. We ended with Jon Snow's fate hanging in the balance after the whole mutiny at the Wall.
Right, and Daenerys was out in the Dothraki Sea just trying to find her way back to Meereen. And we can't forget Tyrion. He was in Essos with very scheming. I mean, it's like every character is on the verge of something huge.
Exactly. And Martin has said there are going to be some big changes. This book, he's described it as a really dark and stormy book. Lots of death and destruction.
Oh, come on. Don't spoil everything for me. I'm trying to go into this fresh.
No spoilers, I promise. But Martin himself has said that readers should be ready for some major characters to die. He's even hinted that there's a battle scene in this book that's even bigger and more brutal than anything we've seen in the series so far.
Okay, now you've got my attention. I do love a good battle scene, especially when it's written with Martin's level of detail and, that kind of grit. But with all this chaos and bloodshed, is there any hope for a happy ending? Like, will any of our favorites even make it out alive?
Well, that's what makes Martin so good, right? He keeps us guessing. He's not afraid to kill off characters that we love, but he also gives us moments of hope and redemption. Like when Theon finally stood up to Ramsay. That was a great moment.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That was amazing. But, I can't help but think back to the ending of the show. It felt like all that character development was kind of tossed aside in the rush to get to the ending.
Yeah.
I really hope Martin's ending is going to be more thought out and satisfying.
I understand that worry. But Martin has been pretty open about his problems with some of the choices they made in those last few seasons of the show. He said that his ending will be different and that he's been working on it for years.
Okay, well, that does give me a little bit of hope, but I'm still a little hesitant.
Yeah.
I mean, even if Martin writes an amazing ending, it's only half the story, right? We still need a dream of spring to get the whole picture.
That's true. But for now, let's just focus on The Winds of Winter. This is the book that's, almost in our grasp. It could be the book that brings back our love for this world, and reminds us why we became fans in the first place. And if it's as good as we're hoping, it'll make that wait for a dream of spring a little easier.
You know what? You're right. Maybe instead of focusing on the negatives, we should be looking forward to the possibilities. This book could be incredible. It could completely change how we see the series.
Exactly. It could be the most epic and satisfying book yet. And even if it doesn't live up to every single expectation, it'll definitely give us something to talk about.
So what can we actually expect to see happen? Any hints about the big events that might go down?
Well, there's been a lot of speculation about Jon Snow's fate. In the books, his story is way more complex than it was in the show. He's connected to a bunch of prophecies, and we still don't know for sure who his parents are. Some fans even think he might come back to life, which would change everything in Westeros.
Okay, now you're speaking my language. That whole mystery around Jon Snow has always been one of my favorite parts.
Yeah.
And I'm dying to know what's going to happen with Daenerys. Will she finally take over Westeros, or will she make the same mistakes as her ancestors?
Another big question. Yeah, Daenerys' journey has been so fascinating and complicated. She went from being a scared exile to a powerful queen. But she's also shown that she can be pretty ruthless. It'll be really interesting to see how Martin handles all that in this book.
Okay, so we've got Jon Snow's uncertain future, Daenerys trying to take power, and all the political scheming going on back in Westeros.
Yeah.
This is going to be wild.
Oh, and we can't forget about the White Walkers. Those terrifying creatures that are a threat to everyone? Martin has hinted that they're going to play a much bigger role in The Winds of Winter, and he said that they might be more complex than we realize.
Whoa, that's kind of scary. They've always been this looming threat, but it sounds like they're about to take center stage.
Right. They're not just mindless monsters. They have their own reasons for doing what they do, and their conflict with humanity might be more complicated than we first thought.
All right, I'm sold. Resurrected heroes, queens, vying for power, ancient prophecies, terrifying ice creatures. It sounds like The Winds of Winter has it all.
I think so. And we're just scratching the surface here. There are so many other characters and plot lines to explore, so many mysteries and twists and turns. We can't even imagine what Martin has in store for us.
Okay, I'm convinced I'm ready to jump back into Westeros and see what happens. But before we move on, I have one last question. If this book is going to be as epic and complex as you say, how should we even prepare for it?
That's a good question. I think the best thing to do is go back and reread the other books. Refresh your memory on all the characters and what they've been through. Maybe even check out some fan theories and analysis online.
Yeah, that's a great idea. It's like training for a marathon. We got to get our minds ready for all the emotional ups and downs that are coming.
It's an investment, but I think it'll be worth it in the end.
All right, you've convinced me. I'm ready to embrace the wait. Go back and read the old books and dive headfirst into all the fan theories. But before we wrap up, I've got to ask. Knowing what you know about this series and about Martin's writing style and everything that might be in the Winds of Winter, do you really think it'll be worth the wait?
That's the ultimate question, isn't it? And honestly, there's no easy answer. It all comes down to what you're looking for in a book, what your expectations are, and how much patience you have.
Right. But for you personally, do you think it'll be worth it?
For me, absolutely. I'm completely hooked on Martin's world and his characters and the way he can write these intricate stories that just keep you guessing. I'm willing to wait and to trust his vision and to really enjoy every page of The Winds of Winter when it finally comes out.
I think I'm right there with you. Despite all the delays and the uncertainty, there's just something about this series that keeps drawing me back in.
That's the power of A Song of Ice and Fire, right? It stays with you, it makes you think and talk about it and come up with theories, it makes you question everything you thought you knew about fantasy.
So for anyone listening, here's our final thought. If you're a fan of epic fantasy, if you love complex characters and stories that keep you on the edge of your seat, then yeah, The Winds of Winter is worth the wait.
It has the potential to be an incredible book, a real masterpiece. It's the result of years of work and passion from one of the greatest fantasy writers of our time.
So be patient. Explore the world. Go back and reread those amazing stories. And get ready for a journey that will stay with you long after you've finished the last page.
It really is the ultimate question. And to be honest, it's a tough one. It really depends on what you're looking for as a reader. What are your expectations and how patient are you?
Yeah, that's true. But I'm curious for you personally, is it worth the wait?
For me, absolutely. I'm totally invested in this world and these characters and the way Martin writes. Those stories that just twist and turn and keep you guessing. I'm happy to wait. I trust him to deliver. And I know I'll enjoy every single page when it finally arrives.
I think I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
I mean, even with all the waiting and not knowing, it's like this series has a hold on me. I just got to know what happens.
That's what A Song of Ice and Fire does, right? It sticks with you. It makes you think and talk and theorize. It makes you question everything you thought you knew about fantasy.
So anyone who's listening, here's our final takeaway. If you love epic fantasy, complex characters, and stories that just totally blow your mind, then yeah, The Winds of Winter is absolutely worth the wait.
It could be a phenomenal book, a masterpiece, really. Years of work and passion from one of the best fantasy authors we have.
So hang in there. Explore the world. Go back and revisit those earlier books. And get ready for a journey you won't forget.